Welcome to the Stronger Marriage Podcast today with your hosts, Trey and Lee Morgan.
We're excited to be with you. We've got a good episode today. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Welcome to the Stronger Marriage Podcast with Trey and Lee. On this podcast, you'll hear real topics about real life. They cover everything from married sex to raising kids to loving your spouse so much that you're willing to forgive them for occasionally being the most annoying person in the world. Trey and Lee have raised 4 boys, been married over 30 years, and somehow still really like each other. And now, live from the metropolis of Childress, Texas, a place so flat you can watch your dog run away for 3 days. Here are your hosts for the Stronger Marriage Podcast, Trey and Lee Morgan.
I have yet to get tired of that intro.
You can watch your dog run away for 3 days. You can watch the chair blow across your yard today.
Yeah, we got wind today. Wind
Lots.
is blowing. Fall is
Wind.
here finally, which we were glad about. I've been ready for some fall.
Yes, we do have some cooler temperatures, which is nice. I guess the wind is bringing it.
Yeah, it is howling outside today, but it's still in the 70s. Is it in the 70s? Pretty close.
I'm not sure we are even in the 70s today.
Maybe not. At least it's not 90, so I'm glad for that.
Yep.
Ready for them 90s to go away. I don't know what the weather is like where you are, but I hope you're enjoying the weather. And thank you for joining us on this podcast. Every week, it seems like we have more people that kind of tune in and listen. And we're thankful for that.
We are.
We love hearing from people who say, hey, we listen to the podcast.
Yeah, trying to get the message of healthy marriages out there.
Some people tell us when they meet us, we've been wanting to put a face with the voice because we listen to y'all. And then some people who just follow us on social media go, wow, y'all are from Texas. Y'all say y'all a lot.
Sorry, can't help it.
It's just kind of in us. Sorry.
It's a habit.
Yeah.
Yes. And we're talking about habits today. Bad
habits. You know, over time in marriage, you kind of pick up some bad habits, and you kind of have to work through some of those.
That's right. So,
Yeah, it's easy to do. You just kind of get in a routine, and sometimes in marriage, you get into some bad habits, and you got to fix some of those. And we've got a few that we're talking about today that are not good for your marriage. And the best thing you can do, it's what we always do, is we like lists. You've probably noticed that our podcasts are 7 things or 3 things or 10 things. Lists give us an opportunity to look down here and go, hey, we need to work on number 4. We're not doing very good on this. Or sometimes we can take a list and go, hey, we're doing great on these 3, but we need to improve on this one. And so lists are a really good way to just kind of touch base and kind of see how things are.
I agree. So, you ready to get to it, or you got some more announcement?
No, I don't have any announcements. We got. I'll throw an announcement out there. Okay, we know we got Houston, Texas, Pasadena, Texas is open. Big crowd, going to be a big workshop. That's next month, and then December we have Woodward, Oklahoma, and that workshop registration has just opened, and that one has taken off too, and we've got a good turnout for that so far. So if you're in the Woodward area, that would be the northeast part of Texas Panhandle, a little bit of Kansas, a little bit all through there. Come drive in, fly in, come hang out with us. You'll like it. It'll be fun. So now let's talk about some bad habits that are hurting your marriage that you want to do. So I'll let you kick it off. What's number 1?
So first thing off the bat is procrastination.
Now, how can
putting things off?
How can that be hard on your marriage?
How is procrastination hard on your marriage?
Because why do something today that I can wait till tomorrow to do?
I know that every one of you out there, your spouse has probably asked you at one time or another to do something, and I'm sure you immediately just jumped right up and did it the minute they asked. But if you're like Trey and I, you've probably maybe put it off for a little bit of time. But yeah, procrastination. This could be anything, putting things off. This could be anything from just small things like, I don't know, the kitchen sink is dripping, the faucet's dripping, and somebody needs to get around to fixing that. Or, it could be your spouse saying, hey, can we go on a date? Or could we read a marriage book together? It could be something kind of big, like your spouse saying, we really could use to talk to a counselor about some things. And sometimes we're just really good at kicking the can down the road, as we like to say. You just think, well, later. We'll do that later. Let's don't rock the boat right now. Let's just put it off.
That's it. And sometimes couples put things off until something gets to dire straits, really, really bad, and then they frantically go, how do we fix this? And if you can catch it upstream, that helps.
Yes.
And so, yeah, putting things off can be tough when you're dealing with relationship stuff. Maybe something that you've needed to work on. Maybe something your spouse has asked you about. Maybe it's just, hey, some time together, and you just keep, one day you can't just keep putting it off.
We'll find time to do that.
Yeah.
Well, you usually don't find time to do much of anything. You have to make time to do a lot of the things that need to be done. So, don't put things off that really need some of your attention. Get them done.
So if you're asking me to do a honeydew for you, you shouldn't probably remind me every 6 months, right? That's probably pretty bad.
Every 6 months?
Yeah. I'm being sarcastic.
Yeah.
Why do you remind me every 6 months I need to do this? Yeah. Don't put things off.
Yeah.
Maybe you need to make a plan. Maybe you need to sit down and make a list of here's some things that I need to get done, some things I need to do. But putting things off or ignoring them, thinking that they'll go away, doesn't fix anything.
Never fixes it.
Doesn't do it. You're going to have to. And you may think that's a small thing, but it can be a very big thing.
Yes.
Especially for a spouse who has asked for some help with something, and you just continue to go, sometime I will. Number 2, negativity.
Negativity is hard. It's a bad habit.
And we did a podcast, a whole episode on this a while back. And if you struggle with being a glass half empty person with a little bit of a negative personality, that's hard on your marriage, and you're going to have to work on that. But we want to touch on a few things, maybe a little different on this one, just a point here about how negativity is hard on your marriage.
Yeah, we do urge you to go back and listen to that. If you're, if something we say in the next couple of minutes strikes a chord with you, go back and listen to that, because we do know that there are personalities that tend to be more negative than other personalities. But if you just say, that's just who I am, that's just my personality, that's a cop-out, because, while, yes, your personality may tend to be more negative, that doesn't mean you just go ahead and be negative.
Yeah.
That's a, what's the word I'm looking for? A flaw in your personality. That's a negative in your personality. That's something that needs to be worked on and can be worked on. It just takes a little more thought and effort to not be negative.
Yeah. It'd be like somebody going, well, I have an anger problem, but that's just who I am. That's a very fixable thing. And so don't let negativity, which is very hard on your marriage, just reign over everything.
Yeah. And negativity can be, that can be criticism towards your spouse, towards your kids. It could just be just having a negative outlook on everything, feeling like you've got to, give a gripe about everything that's going on everywhere. If you sit down at a restaurant, you've got to point out what's wrong with your food, or I don't know, just all the time the negatives, and people don't really want to hear that. So just keep those to yourself.
I don't like hanging out with negative people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also don't focus only on negatives. And that's something that married couples, the longer they've been married, the easier this is to do. Meaning, after we've been married 33 years, after 30 years of marriage, we kind of quit focusing on what the other person does well, and we just kind of tend to notice the things that really are driving us nuts. Mm-hmm. The fact that you may be a little negative, the fact that I may have a little bit of a temper, you just go down the list. If you're not careful, you will find yourself only looking at the negative things that your spouse does that you don't like, and that will just bring out more negatives.
Yes.
You've got to focus on some positives, some things that you really, really like. If you spend all your time focusing on what is really driving you nuts about your spouse, then you're just going to find more things. And that's not good. That's a habit that's hard on your marriage.
It's a bad habit.
And you work to get out of that. And that happens with anything. If you focus If you focus on what you don't like all the time about your job, you're going to hate your job. If you notice everything you hate about your car, whatever it is, you're going to be frustrated all the time, and you just can't be that.
Yeah, if you'll focus more on the positives, you're just going to be a happier person. You really are. So, bad habits that are hurting your marriage, putting things off, and focusing only on the negatives. Those are bad habits.
What's the third one?
So the next one is selfishness. Selfishness. Yeah, we are a selfish people. We're born selfish, you know. I mean, you think about a baby that just is born. They don't know any better. They just need their needs met, and it's all about them. And sadly, some of us just don't ever quite grow out of the selfishness.
Yeah, and sometimes we have pity parties. We may not be very selfish, but we kind of get in this selfish stage of just kind of feeling that way.
Yeah. You can go through stages or phases where you just feel like, you know, my needs aren't being met. Where you focus a little more on what people ought to be doing for you, rather than what you can be doing for others.
Yeah, that is true. Be cautious about the selfishness and putting yourself first all the time. And sometimes don't play the I've done 5 things for you today, and you only done 2 things for me.
Right. Don't keep score.
Don't have a scorecard of going, well, this week I've taken her on a date and I sat down and cuddled with her on the couch, and she likes those things, and she's yet to do anything that I like to do. And so scorecards don't work for anything, and that's part of selfishness, and that's not a healthy thing to do.
That's right. Our goal that we try to keep is to, you know, wake up every morning and say, what can I do to bless my spouse?
Right.
You don't want to wake up in the morning and think, what does somebody need to do to make my day better? Instead, think about what you can do to make somebody else's day better. And chances are you'll have a good day because you're not focusing on yourself.
True. Yeah. Be cautious about selfishness. Think to yourself, what can I do to bless my spouse today? Even if I've already blessed them and they have yet to bless me.
That's right. You just keep blessing.
That's it. Number 4, play to your strengths. I guess the bad habit is not playing to your strength. Not playing to your strength. And we actually talked about this on Instagram the other day and kind of brought up every married couple has their strengths and their weaknesses. Individuals do. And what it's easy to do sometimes is you spend your time, hey, I want to be the one that does this, and yet that may not be my strength. You're very detailed, you're very organized. And so you pay the bills and keep up with our funds, great. And that's awesome. I honestly don't want that job. I deal with people well. And so I'm kind of the front man oftentimes for meeting people and talking to people and contacting people because I do that well. And so play to your strengths in your marriage. When you don't, that's hard to do. Don't feel like it's a pride thing. Well, my wife shouldn't be the one that carries the checkbook all the time. You know, why don't I ever get to carry the checkbook? Yeah, that's not it. You're a team. Play off your strengths.
Right. You know, if your wife is the one that's good with numbers, it doesn't mean that she's, you know, controlling you and your finances just because she's the one that's good with numbers. You need to use each other's strengths. You know, if she's good with numbers and you're not, it would be silly to think that, you know, you should be the one keeping up with your finances, because chances are, I mean, as Trey said, he would probably get us in all kinds of messes if he were the one to keep up.
Probably.
And we recognize that early on. So don't, you know,
Don't let people tell you that being different from your spouse is a bad thing. Opposites attract, and that's totally okay. Because what you often find is, you know, if you look closely, your spouse is generally going to be good at the very things that you're not good at, and vice versa. We're that way. Marriage is not really about finding someone that completes you, but more finding somebody that balances you. And that's kind of why we oftentimes married opposites.
That's right.
it really, really helps. And we're good at different things. With you being organized and I'm not, you take care of the bills and the banking, and we play to our strengths. And I enjoy being outside, and I like dirt, and I like sweat, and I like man stuff. And that sounds silly, but
And
that's
so
not
you-
your stuff.
And
So
you take care of the yard.
I mow and I take care of the cars.
But
and
we know a lot of women that like to mow.
yeah, which is fine.
They like to be outdoors, and
Sure.
they like to do that, and that's fine. You know,
Play
sometimes
to your strengths.
sometimes we get into these gender stereotypes, and we think, well, the man should be the one that does the yard work, and the woman should be the one that does the cooking and the cleaning and the laundry. But we know plenty of men who are better cooks, who are better at keeping the house clean. You know, don't fall into the gender stereotypes here. You do what you're good at to bless your marriage.
But you fall into playing towards your strengths.
Yes.
And if your strength is the husband mowing the lawn, then mow the lawn.
Yes.
If your strength is the husband doing the cooking, do the cooking.
Yes, that's what I meant by not falling into the stereotypes that
Yes,
we
exactly.
think. You know, we think the women should be the one to clean, but if the man's better at it, play to your strength.
Yeah. We just, we've learned to play to our strengths. We know what we are good at, and we kind of do those things and what works good for us.
That's right.
Now, one of the things we do, and this is not on here, and I think this is important, for 33 years, I've mowed the lawn. That's just what I do. For 33 years, honestly, you have done the laundry. I think it's because you don't want me bothering and touching the laundry. But I say thank you regularly for you doing the laundry. I don't take
Yes.
that for granted. You thank me regularly and tell me the yards look great. We
Yes.
don't just automatically go, well, that's just her job.
Right.
So,
Yeah, don't take each other for granted. We could almost add that as another bad habit. That we sometimes take each other for granted.
and actually number 5 rolls right into this point. It does.
Trying to change your spouse to be like you is a bad habit.
It is, and generally that works early in marriage. And we did this early in marriage, and a lot of couples do this early in marriage. They spend the first few years of marriage going, why is he not doing it this way? This is the way I like it. Or why is she not doing things this way? Because that's the best way to do it. And we spend all our time trying to change our spouse to be like us. God made your spouse to be who they are.
That's right. And you fell in love with who they were. Sometimes it just takes, being married and living together for a certain amount of time to realize some quirks that we each have. But yeah, don't spend all your time trying to change your spouse. Just embrace who they are. Let them live up to their strengths, and overlook some of those weaknesses that they're going to have, and hopefully they'll work on those weaknesses, like the negativity, those kinds of things, grow in those areas. But yeah,
It's true.
what do you want to add?
Just the fact that when you do marry someone different than you, it's really hard sometimes to see things from their viewpoint. I spent the first couple of years going, why does she not, if she just get out and try to get around people more often, you being an introvert and me being an extrovert, she'd realize it's a lot more fun my way. and you at the same time would be just the opposite,
Right.
going, why can't he
Why
see
can't he understand that it's
that you
real
don't have to be the
fun?
center of
Yeah.
attention?
It's real fun to me to stay home and not go anywhere.
Yeah, I remember in our marriage one time somebody's ringtone on their phone went off, and it was like a little mariachi band yell, just real loud kind of yell. And I said, that is about the coolest ringtone that I've ever heard. I would love to have one of those. And you looked at me and said, why would you ever want
Why?
something like that?
Yeah.
Because everyone would look at you. And I said,
Exactly.
that's exactly the point. Yeah, it's just difference in people.
That's right. So if you're opposites, like a lot of us tend to be in marriage, don't spend all your time trying to change your spouse.
Yeah, let's look at number 6. We're going to touch on this one because I actually think this may be next week's podcast episode. A bad habit is not caring enough to meet your spouse's needs,
Right. To know what they are.
and then to meet them.
Well, to know what I'm trying to say is the bad habit is to know what your spouse needs, but you just don't put out any effort to meet that need.
Yeah.
Is-
Yes, no, that's it. I know your needs. We worked on this before. You know my needs. But it would be easy, first, if you don't know your spouse's needs, you need to. We're going to talk about this. But secondly, for me to go, hey, I know that she needs this, but it's just not really my thing. You know, it is just really, I'm not big on communication. So why, it's selfish for her to try to make me want to communicate or whatever it is.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Right. She wants lots of touch and affection,
Yeah.
and he's thinking, but I'm not. I don't do touch and affection.
But when you realize marriage works well by you saying, I wonder what my wife's needs are or my husband's needs are, and I want to try to meet those, even if it's not my thing. First, it can kind of become your thing. You can find out it's not as bad as you thought it was. But secondly, boy, it makes marriage work so much better because my natural reaction is when you strive to meet my needs, I'm around here looking, what can I do to bless my wife? Because she is so good to me.
Yeah, that's right.
And so when you're not making an effort to meet your spouse's needs, or when you're just going, hey, that's just not me anymore, even though my spouse needs that, that is a bad habit and you're hurting your marriage. And that needs to stop, You're married for better, for worse. Philippians chapter 2, verses 3 and 4 talk about don't look to your own interests, but to the interests of others and put others' needs before your own. And we, in marriage, man, that's how things really work well.
It does. And I think that one of the areas in this where it is very hurtful for marriages that we see the most frustration probably is when it comes to the difference in sexual desires.
Sure.
If one spouse has a higher desire than the other one, the one that has the lower desire is just like, it's just not my thing. It's just not what I want to do. I mean, that's very frustrating to the one that has, a high desire when you just don't put any interest or care into meeting that need.
Yeah.
So we just hear that and see that a lot.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about that next week a little bit more. Let's talk about number 7.
All right. So this is a bad habit, not including your spouse in your plans.
Yeah, being too independent is not healthy for your marriage.
Yeah.
Don't live as a single person if you're married.
That's right. This can be probably really challenging if you're single for a long time before you get married. We weren't. We got married. We were young. We didn't really struggle with this probably too much, maybe on occasion. But, if you've just kind of been doing your own thing for a long time and then you get married, you may have a hard time, remembering to include your spouse or even check with your spouse before you make plans. It's just the considerate thing to do. If you're planning a hunting trip or a fishing trip or a shopping weekend, whatever it is, it's usually a good idea to check with your husband or wife before you make it official that you're going to do that. Just say, yeah, that sounds great, but let me just make sure this is cool with my spouse before I say yes to that. And then you could take it a step further and invite your spouse to go with you. That's
true.
Even if you know they really don't want to come fishing with you, invite them anyway.
That's true.
Make them feel like you want them there and that they're welcome to be there.
My friend Eric Kirkpatrick one time gave a little bit of marriage wisdom, and he said, there are some things that I know my wife does not want to do that are hobbies of mine that I want to do, but I always try to make an effort to invite her so she knows if she'd like to, she is welcome and she is included in this. And I remember thinking, that is fantastic. Don't automatically think because your spouse has said no 3 times in a row that she may say no 4 times in a row, but at least they know they're included and they're welcome to come.
That's right.
So include your spouse in your plans.
Yeah. Making lots of plans without your spouse is a bad habit.
Yeah. If you have separate calendars, sit down together and go over those and talk about what you got going on. We regularly discuss our calendar, what's on our schedule this week, what's on our schedule tomorrow, because we don't want to come across and go, I didn't tell you that I was going to do this or that we had this planned. We try really hard to be codependent. We choose to be dependent upon one another and Interdependent. That's a word. That's a word I was looking for.
Interdependent.
Yes.
Yes.
And so it really, really helps when you are including your spouse in your plans and talking about things. Do you want to do this? Can I do this? This has been on my schedule for a while. It's a very helpful thing to do. So these are some habits that you don't want to get into. You don't want to put things off. You don't want to focus only on negatives or be negative. Be careful about selfishness. Not playing to your strengths. Look at what you do well and divide those things out in whatever it is. Don't try to change your spouse to be like you, because that's really not the way God designed them. Love them for who they are. And bad habit is not wanting to meet your spouse's needs or putting out any kind of effort. All of those are bad habits.
Right. And not including your spouse in your plans. The last one we did. So,
there you go.
Yep. Hopefully you are listening to this and you're thinking, I'm good. I don't need to work on any of those. I don't do any of those things.
That's good.
We applaud you if that's the case. But if there was something in there that you thought, I probably need to work on that a little bit, we challenge you to get busy and do that. Work on it.
Yeah, that is. Find those little edges in there that you're a little bit off on, that you need to work on, and do those things. Get busy on them. One of the best things you can do is sit down with this podcast, listen with your spouse, and ask your spouse, what's something that we can do? Which one of these 7 things would be good to work on? Be a good homework assignment. Y'all have a great week.
Bye, guys.